and maybe we can hear from the Council during this discussion if anything is going on in that sense. So now, next I would like to invite Mrs. Zoya Phan. She has a presentation, I think, so she's sitting here in the front, from the international from the Burma Campaign UK. So please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairperson, for organizing this hearing and for giving me opportunity to speak here today. Madam Chairperson, it has been 3 years since Buddhist monks in Burma took up to the streets, calling for change, calling for the end of military rule, calling for human rights and democracy. And these Buddhist monks, they face guns and bullets, and many of them got arrested, tortured, and many of them remains in prison today, and many of them are in hiding place. To avoid international pressure, the regime is now going ahead with their own fake election. And these elections will bring in a constitution that will legalize military rule, that will guarantee no human rights, no democracy, and real freedom for the people in Burma, and will not solve the problem that Burma faces. Aung San Suu Kyi, the leader of the democracy movement, remains under house arrest, and she has been detained for almost 15 years, and this is breaking international law. At the same time, almost 2,200 political prisoners in Burma face torture, and they are denied medical treatment, and they were sent to different prisons in remote areas and make it very difficult for their family to visit them. And the main democratic opposition party, National League for Democracy, is banned, and the censorship and repression remains in place and even increase. And at the same time, the dictatorship threatened to break ceasefire with ethnic ceasefire groups that could lead to a huge human rights and humanitarian crisis in Burma. And according to the elections and the constitutions, the president should come from military background, and the president will choose key ministers in border affairs, in home affairs, and in defense, which will have direct control in ethnic areas. Ladies and gentlemen, this constitution that these elections will bring in is not just to strengthen military rule, but it guarantees an end to ethnic diversity in Burma. So what's the response from the European Union? So far, we have seen European countries have been divided over the issue of Burma. Some countries say that this election is total sham and we should condemn it strongly. It will not bring change, and we appreciate that. But some European countries, they say this election will bring change and we must relax sanctions and we should start fresh. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, there is no real change on the ground. The attacks against ethnic minorities continue, and at the same time, the dictatorship in Burma is committing war crimes and crimes against humanity, including crucifixion, people burnt alive, rape, including gang rape, and many forms of torture, including beating and arbitrary execution, beheading, and the use of slave labor. Madam Chairperson, more than 3,500 villages have been destroyed in the past 15 years. That is only in eastern part of Burma. And these civilians were forced to flee from their homelands. Tens of thousands of people were forced because of the attacks, including myself. And the regime deliberately targeting civilians for this. Madam Chairperson, I was in Burma earlier this year, and I met a woman. She was only 24 years old when she was forced to carry heavy loads for the Burmese military troops. And at night, she was gang raped by the soldiers. And she was forced to join the military regime by carrying their military supplies and gang raped again and again. And it came to the time when her father defended her. Her father was shot dead, and she and her family were forced to flee for their lives. Ladies and gentlemen, I also met a family who just escaped from mortar bomb shelled by the military regime's troops. This child, Zorobimu, he and his friends were in the school, and when they were studying, the regime's army shelled mortar bomb, and he was injured, and he died 2 days later. And these two boys got injured in the same mortar bomb attack. And the regime troops, they knew where these civilians were hiding, and they knew where the school was. That's why they opened fire and they shelled mortar into this village. Mublaw, she was forced to carry military supplies for the Burmese troops. And this is planned, systematic, and widespread, where the regime is using slave labor, forced labor, tens of thousands of people. Mublaw is just one story where she was forced to carry very heavy loads with her two young children, and in the jungle, she was forced to walk for a long way without given any proper rest and food, and she escaped later. Another crime that the dictatorship in Burma committed is the use of child soldiers. When I was on Thailand-Burma border, I met this defector child soldier. He told me that he was on his way to visit his grandparents, when the regime's army troops grabbed him and then forced him to join the army. He was given two choices: join the army or go to prison. He was a child. He didn't want to go to prison, so he joined the army, and he was sent to go to ethnic area, burn down houses, and commit crimes, killing people. He tried to escape, but the first time he wasn't successful, and he escaped later. He could end up in prison for 40 years just by leaving the Burmese army. Ladies and gentlemen, we do appreciate European Parliament having strong resolutions on Burma in the past, and we appreciate European Parliament have resolution calling for a United Nations to set up a commission of inquiry to investigate these crimes committed by the dictatorship in Burma. Despite resolutions from the European Parliament and despite the UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights calling for this investigation, European Union has not made decision to support this commission of inquiry. Ladies and gentlemen, now we know that the elections scheduled to be held on 7th of November will not bring real change for the people in Burma, will not bring the kinds of change that people want. So it is time for European Union and the rest of the international community to move on. We need to see that the European Union officially supports this UN Commission of Inquiry into these war crimes and crimes against humanity committed by the dictatorship in Burma, and bring justice and stand for the side of the people in Burma. It is time international community and European Union understand the true nature of the dictatorship in Burma. These dictatorships, they are made up of soldiers. They are not politicians, and they are not diplomats. And they will not respond to softly approach, like the kind of UN approach. We have seen 40 visits by the United Nations envoys in the past 20 years, but there hasn't been any single democratic change in Burma. Ladies and gentlemen, EU is making the same mistake by sending its own envoy in Burma. We need to see more stronger pressure from European Union. We need to see a clear timeline, benchmark, and consequences. Without any real change in Burma, we should see international community to increase pressure. The European Union should not relax sanctions without any concrete reform in Burma. We need to see more targeted economic pressure together with political pressure and legal pressure from European Union and from international community. Ladies and gentlemen, we know that the regime will still go ahead with the election. So after these elections, we need to see European Union to support a revived UN-led high-level dialogue in Burma. We know that the United Nations repeatedly called for tripartite dialogue in Burma, to have dialogue with the dictatorship and democracy movement led by Aung San Suu Kyi and ethnic representatives in Burma. Ladies and gentlemen, UN and EU failed to engage with ethnic representatives in Burma. It is time European Union and United Nations to put more effort to bring in genuine representatives from ethnic groups together with democracy movement and the dictatorship and have a real negotiation to solve the problem in Burma. At the same time, people are living in poverty and people are living in desperate need, and we need to see European Commission to provide more humanitarian aid in Burma, including cross-border aid, because these people, 500,000 people who are internally displaced, they can't be reached from inside Burma because the dictatorship block aid in that area, and they can be reached only through cross-border assistance. For example, from India and from Thailand and from other neighboring countries. Ladies and gentlemen, what democracy movement in Burma wants is a genuine democracy, not a fake democracy, through tripartite dialogue, which is supported by European Union, United States of America, and other countries. We hope that European Union will double their efforts to persuade and to support United Nations to bring this tripartite dialogue happen in Burma. And we need to see a genuine national reconciliation that will lead to democracy. And what people in Burma want is a federal Burma where, regardless of our race, our ethnicity, our gender, religion, everyone are equal and everyone should be treated equally. And people in Burma will continue with the support from European Union and international community. Thank you very much, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mrs. So you can hear that everybody in this room appreciates and supports your strong demand, your strong call on the EU to take a good, positive, strong stand in the UN about this inquiry. And thank you for your other suggestions to the EU on the cross-border aid and supporting the tripartite dialogue. So now, at the end, I, of course, will invite the European Commission to react to the demands and suggestions that have been made, in particular what is going on in the General Assembly at this moment, what the European Union's engagement is. But before that, I would still like to invite Mrs. Debbie Stothard,